if you look at what the pros do, like that are professional, I'll use air quote athletes because they're participating in a fitness event.
Competition.
Yeah. Versus like you're going to run the 100, 200, 400. You're a decathlete. Like I see that's an athlete. Like you can do everything.
Yeah.
I mean, if you can lift heavy and you can run, cool. But I know a lot of guys that can do it, and girls that can do that have zero athletic transfer. They can clean and snatch and press all this stuff, and then but like throw a ball, kick.
No coordination.
Dude,
no.
Straight line, awesome.
That's interesting.
Make them turn and they fall over. It's one of my good buddies. He was like this 6'3", beautiful hair. He went from a BC or a battalion chief with us to be a hand model.
Hand model?
Yeah, I shit you not. He's a hand model. And, I mean, the stories I can tell you. This guy, if you ever want ladies, you just follow in his wake, and they just like, they just like eddy behind him, and you just like swoop him up. It's ridiculous, but super strong, super fast, handsome, ridiculous. He could run and move in straight lines. Make him go sideways. No,
Couldn't do it.
no,
So funny.
Never played sports. He's like a cowboy from Covelo.
Really?
Yeah, he's a pretty good dude. It's just kind of funny, like his progression, and then I don't call it a regression, but it's just like a change of what you're doing.
Career path.
Yeah,
That's
it's kind of
interesting.
strange.
I wonder how you go about being a hand model.
Yeah.
Where do you go to?
Must be a tough gig.
Well, he lived in Santa Monica and that environment.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
Makes sense.
whatever.
All right, let's go ahead and get started. You want to start or me?
You can start this one.
All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Coast Boys Podcast. My name is Izzy. I'm here with Gabe, and today we're joined by Drew Rhoads. Drew, how you doing?
Good. How are you guys?
Good.
Doing good. We just want to say thank you so much for joining us. We know you're a busy guy. You got a hectic schedule. And first, we can just start off by giving quick intros of ourselves so you have a better idea of who we are and what we do. Then we can jump into you, and then we'll just dive in, right?
Yeah, let's do it.
So my name is Ismael Rios. I go by Izzy. I'm 24 years old. I'm born and raised here in Fort Bragg, California. I grew up playing sports, mainly baseball. High school, started playing soccer. And that was really what influenced my decisions in college. After college, I went to Sonoma State for a year. Never tried out, never played. Didn't really take any courses towards anything I wanted to do, so I see it kind of as like just a wake-up call or a way to decide what I wanted to do. From there, I transferred over to Mendocino College. I started playing ball there, soccer. Did a couple years there, played under Shane Huff. Transferred over to Cal State San Bernardino to play. Did about a year and a half there. Took a year off to work, and now I'm back at Sonoma State where I was playing before the pandemic hit. And I'm majoring in business administration with a concentration in marketing. I'm expected to graduate in May of next year.
Nice.
And I'm Gabe Hernandez, also born and raised here in Fort Bragg. I'm 24 years old. Kind of did the same thing he did, but I started growing up playing soccer all my life, so I kind of did that, and that's kind of when we kind of became friends and connected through soccer. Went to UC Davis 4 years, graduated in a double major in psychology and sociology. I'm a school teacher now.
Oh boy.
Yeah, it was a lot of work. A lot of good times, a lot of hard times, but
We get analyzed while I'm here.
yeah, I'm gonna dissect everything about you, man. But anyways, so yeah, and now I'm a school teacher here at Dana Gray Elementary,
Awesome.
and yeah, I'm excited to have you on.
Okay, I'm Drew Rhoads, born and raised in Fort Bragg, actually in Cleone, 43, going almost on 44, so I got you guys by a couple decades.
Yeah.
2 kids, wife, both boys. One is actually a 4th grader in Dana Gray. The other one's in a 6th grader. And then, I played soccer, baseball, basketball, football, wrestling, and kind of got into high school was just basketball, baseball, football. Soccer went by the wayside just because of my size at that point. I still love it, still coach it. But going from like the size range, you're like, oh, I could still play with the boys too. Oh, I'm 6'2", 240 now. I'm like, ugh.
Yeah.
That doesn't really equate to soccer as much anymore.
Yeah.
But football was a pretty good avenue for me. So anyway, did that and then went to school at Butte College for 2.5-ish years. Went through the fire science program, associates in that. And the academy, started with Cal Fire, and then kind of, because I had a knee injury in football, kind of interested on that side, played a little bit at Butte, not much, and then I played, started kind of the spring ball to play for fall at Humboldt, and then just couldn't do the year-round between school and working and being a physical trainer, which is my emphasis at Humboldt, and BS in kinesiology, and then volunteering for the fire department. So it's just I just couldn't juggle all that. So
Too much.
Yeah.
So I ended up, staying on with CAL FIRE and then getting a perm job, and here we go.
Right on.
20-ish or 23 years later. So
Nice. So that's a main reason we wanted to have you on. You're in CAL FIRE now. And essentially what we do, we talked a little bit off camera, is just kind of try to provide a platform originally for ourselves. But we found that we can bring on friends of ours, people that we've met that have impacted our lives in a certain way, or people in this community that have impacted the lives of others. And just essentially just kind of share their experiences so people can learn like us. We're learning about CAL FIRE today. And hopefully kind of maybe spark something in them to think differently, make a different decision. But at the end of the day, is essentially to learn and hopefully educate others. You mentioned CAL FIRE. Was that always something that you wanted to do?
Actually, no. So firefighting, yes. CAL FIRE or CDF at that time, no. I grew up in the backdraft generation, as we kind of call it in the fire service. So there's like the backdraft generation, where you've seen the movie Backdraft, or now there's Backdraft 2, which is just a travesty of film. It's
Hot take.
I mean, literally, Brian Wan Hall, which you guys need to get on here as well. He's a Fort Bragg guy, and he works at Woodland Station with Sal. I think we watched it at Woodland Station. It was like an hour and a half that you're not going to get back in life. It was horrible. Backdraft 1, the original, was awesome. I watched it a lot when I was a kid growing up. And then I had my dad actually passed away in 1990. And then his best friend was a Richmond engineer. So you have like firefighter, engineer, captain, battalion chief, and up the chain from there. So he kind of guided me a little bit, like, hey, this would be fun. And I was kind of leaning toward military. He's like, don't do that. He was a Vietnam era guy. He's like, you don't want to do that. Just think about it. This is a pretty good job. I did some ride-alongs with him. It turned into a kind of an English assignment because I was doing pretty bad in school at the time. I don't know if Mr. Barry was still, have you guys ever
No.
Awesome English teacher, and kept me in sports. I was about to fail out. Had a lot of trouble in the early 90s with school. And the only thing that kept me in school was sports. So he helped me out, did a book report, or an interview, I guess, / book report, and got me back in. And then Danny, my dad's a good friend, led me down the path, like, this is what you need to do, academies and education, and then so forth. So that's kind of how I got into Butte, which then led to a lot of CDF instructors teach at Butte College. They still do. I saw that, and I'm like, this is kind of interesting. A little more down the outdoors path versus in the city. City is great. You make a lot of money. You don't work very much, which is a lot of my previous firefighters have now gotten jobs in the cities as paramedic firefighters or engineers now. So there's a couple different avenues, and just CAL FIRE looked good. I got a job with them after a while, after a couple of years of interviewing and academies and so forth, and volunteering and a lot of other stuff. Yeah. And then it just kind of fit. I got hired in 1998. So the 98 to 2008 was kind of our first big year. We had a whole bunch of lightning, and that was really illuminating. At that time I'd promoted to an engineer. So it was kind of an operator, and they give you a lot of, it was John Wayne time. There's so many fires. A lot of them were right up here, right off the, in the area here. I was up with Dan Maxey and a couple of the other guys that were volunteers here and chiefs. And we were just fighting fires and really pulling stuff off that we probably shouldn't have been doing. It was more like put the ball cap on, roll the sleeves up and go to work versus wear all our safety gear and all the proper procedures and checklists and stuff that we use now. But we got it done, and it was just seeing a different side of it. So that was pretty cool. And then just from that point, I kind of just have stuck with it, and a lot of other doors opened up, which we'll get into probably. And that just kept me diving further deep in. Kind of the 2002 year was my turning point. Like, okay, am I going to stay in this job? I don't know. I finished school. I got my AS, my BS. I'm looking to go to paramedic school. Do I get a job in the city? Do I go down south? And then my now wife, I met her at a party, and man, that was it. Anchor out. So she got a job here before I did with Mendocino Unit Company.
Nice.
And then that was that. I'm like, well, okay, long-term or long-distance relationships haven't worked for me in the past. So
Yeah, it's a bad idea.
I'm like, whatever, anchor out and we'll stay here. I'll figure it out. So
Right on.
Nice.
What are the main differences between CAL FIRE and like the city fire station?
Yeah, because honestly, before you answer, I kind of always thought they were similar. I didn't know there was a huge distinction between them. And now that I'm friends with Sal and he kind of talked to me about it, and he's working for CAL FIRE, I understand there's a huge difference.
It is and it isn't. So we all do a similar job. Just depending on your jurisdiction or your municipality, what have you, it's to serve and protect, right? So in our CDF days, it was more about the wildland or the watershed conservation, similar to what the Forest Service does. And they do a decent job without going too far into that. On their side of it, they're kind of understaffed and underpaid for what they're doing. Mm. So the city is more, hey, you have these 10 square blocks, especially in larger cities. San Francisco is a much older city. Oakland's a much older city. Have friends that work in both places. And you have your little piece of the pie, and that's what you maintain, and that's what you respond to. And you might work a Kelly schedule, which is let's say it's a Monday on, Tuesday off, Wednesday on, Thursday off, Friday on, and then you have 4 days off. Then you roll back into a Wednesday, Friday, Sunday. Mm. So you don't work that often. One of my friends, she's now working a 1 on, 1 off, 2 on, 2 off. Or no, 1 on, 1 off, 2 on, 4 off, or something like that. It's some modified schedule that you just don't, you're not there very much, and they get paid pretty well. Some of the stuff that CAL FIRE has on the back end, like monetarily, we don't get paid as much up front, but we have pretty good benefits on the back end. Now, the actual job, we are still, it's what's called Blue Book funding. That's what my job class is funded for wildland fire suppression in the state responsibility area. So like all of this, pretty much everything in Mendocino County, with the exception of Fort Bragg, Willits, Ukiah, and Point Arena, is state responsibility area. So that's kind of our job. And then obviously all the major incidents throughout the state, we have incident command teams. We have 6 of them. They go and take command or assist the municipality or jurisdiction with command and control and a lot of logistics with those incidents. So in the city, you don't really have those teams. We would come in and help. In the city, we're worried about this little area, right? And for CAL FIRE, it's the state, right? Mm-hmm. Forest Service, it's the nation. It's also broken down. So CAL FIRE is actually, we're pretty well known for the wildland side of it. That's what you see on TV. But actually, the largest side of our department is Schedule A, which is actually in a city. So a lot of different contracts. People can contract with the state to provide, for us to provide services. So let's say the city of Fort Bragg wanted to provide, their department right now is, whether it's not working right or that it's spending too much, we can come in and we're a little cheaper. Now, granted, Fort Bragg is mostly volunteer, but Ukiah is a better example. They're only staffing with a couple people a day, and they're paying X amount of money. Well, they work a 2-day schedule. We work a 3-day schedule. So right there, right, you need less people. Now, is it right? No. We kind of work a federally illegal schedule, so we actually get extended duty pay on top of it. So we get time and a half after our 53 hours a week. So we typically work a 72, and they typically work a 53 that's broken up in that 7-day period, which gets kind of confusing. But so we can come into certain places and do the job cheaper, which somewhat undercuts the locals, but in the big picture, the municipality or the jurisdiction just needs fire protection. And they're like, this is how much money we have. Who can provide the best service at that rate? Right. We can't always do that. With the increase in minimum wage, especially our firefighter corps, the prices are slowly going up. So much for the engineers, captains, battalion chiefs. Our pay hasn't changed very much in quite a long time. The firefighters keep coming up above us. So Sal, when he started, he's making like $1,400 more than I did when I started. Dang. So granted, it was like 20 years, but it's pretty. Still, but it's a lot of money. Yeah. When you see what the firefighters make, it's that's like when I was talking about when we do that presentation. Yeah, and I put the slide up. How much you make? This is what you take home. This is the benefits. People go, oh, that's when they wake up and they stop looking at their phones. They go, whoa, how much a month? Working 3 days a week? That's not, 12 days a month, still not really true because you get forced on duty and stuff, but it's pretty good. it could be better, but right now our union has done a really good job with negotiating with the state to get pretty good pay benefits for our employees, which is the whole thing about the union. Back to the Schedule A. So that's like 65. It's kind of rough numbers. I'll say 65% of the department right now is Schedule A. So the whole city, the whole county of Riverside, part of San Bernardino, San Luis, Fresno, Madera, Mariposa, Merced. That whole unit is mostly, a lot of it's Schedule A. Pretty much everything south of San Francisco, a lot of it's Schedule A. We still have some stuff in Napa and Butte counties, a Schedule A program, Shasta. So there's some spots where we have firefighter 2s, which are permanent firefighters, and then engineers, captains, so forth, that they're funded by a city to staff a Type 1 or larger engine, which you see like the city of Fort Bragg has. Mm-hmm. And that's what they staff instead of a Type 3, like what, Sal's on.
Yeah.
So we still do the same job. Our academies are the same. Actually, it's ours. We go a little bit overboard on some stuff. We have 2 different ones, and one's in Ione and one's down in Riverside at Clark. So we're taught to do the same exact things. It's just we were focused on the public's focus. What they see us is wildland.
Interesting.
And that's kind of the thing that nobody really knows. They're like, oh, it's the wildland guy. It's the brush guys. We're like, we're actually taught to do everything. And then when we go to our academies, they don't talk about wildland. It's all structure, vehicle extrication, rescue, propane firefighting, structure firefighting, the rest of the job, so to speak, that the structure guys do. We do the exact same thing. We're just not, we're exposed to it quite often, but it's just not sold to the public that we also do that.
Right.
Yeah.
You just see us, wildland fire.
So I was gonna say that's what comes to mind when I think Cal Fire. You know, I think another version of firefighters. You don't think wildland and all that kind of stuff. You know.
No, and so it's a lot of stuff's changing. The state fire marshal, the kind of the training, and they are us and we're them. It's the same department, but they kind of set the standards for training, and now it's somewhat more nationalized. So they've kind of dumbed down our state fire marshal firefighter 1 certification to meet the rest of the nation, and then they've added on some extra stuff to beef it up. It's kind of strange. It's like we had a really good firefighter 1 curriculum that had everything plus wildland, and then we had to dumb it down to meet the rest of the nation because they don't do that. Mm-hmm. And now, like, there's addendums to bring it back. So as an instructor, it's kind of like, okay, we took this great curriculum, dumbed it down, now we're bringing it back. I don't know. It's kind of weird. But everybody in the state a lot of the larger departments are slowly moving toward, like, yes, we're going to do wildland because we just have to. There's not enough resources in the state. As you saw this summer with all those fires occurring, it was everybody. All hands, people from all over the nation, even internationally, coming to help. So,
yeah, how has that been? You just get a call and you have to move, or do they tell you where to go, or how does that work?
When the large ones occur, there's usually a drawdown. So it's a little, now that I'm on the helicopter versus the engine, in the engine world, let's say we start taking stuff away from the coast, right? They're going to start to backfill, and then you're going to drag more weight, and they backfill again. They drag more weight, and they backfill again. Eventually, that pot is empty, so you start grabbing from out of state, and that pot starts getting empty, and they start grabbing international. Mm-hmm. So it's just a drawdown in waves. Takes a little bit. On the aircraft side, it's pretty much the tones go off when we go, and then the nice thing about the aircraft is that we come back at night usually. So we're not on the, unfortunately with Sal and some of the other guys, they're out on the line for, sometimes a 36-hour shift, especially initial attack on a big fire, versus we fly there, whether I'm in the air attack or the helicopter, we fly there, fly the fire, go back at night, back in your bed. So
hang out. Would you say it's more, is it like with seniority for Helitack? Is it the ones that have been there the longest kind of get first dibs at it?
So there's some seniority with it. It's not a seniority based thing. It's who's best for the job. So on the firefighter corps, we have approximately 140 firefighters in Mendocino County, or for Cal Fire in the county, and we expanded that a little bit this year with the firefighter hand crews, which is something totally new to us. So that's been kind of a trial, and then from that corps we grab 12 people. We find 12 primaries and then 4 usually like secondary personnel or alternates for our Helitack program. And it's been the same folks for a while. This is my first year full-time on Helitack. I've been a relief captain / crew chief for the last 5 years since 2015. So I've been involved in the program, but just not full-time. So it's pretty interesting seeing that process. We kind of do a week of refresher training that everybody does. And then we do a week of BHOS, which is basic helicopter operational safety. And that kind of starts to see the guys that have been around for a while. We have one guy that's been there 10 years plus, and then with the department for even more. So he kind of knows the program back and forth. He can teach the whole thing, but he kind of likes to sit on the sidelines and just watch things happen and nudge people when they need to be nudged, Mm-hmm. He's a good leader in that respect. And you have a lot of chargers that are just like, they're going to try to ram every subject down your throat, and they interrupt each other to try to teach. You're like, okay, now let him teach now. Your time's out. Let him teach. And so you like all these little personality in place, like on the psychology, sociology side, you see these different personalities play out, and like how you supervise one is not how you supervise the other.
Yeah.
And a lot of people say, oh, you supervise the same way, whether it's, laissez-faire, autocratic, what have you.
It's very old school.
But you can't.
Yeah.
Like, some people need a little nod, a little great job. You did a great job today. Other people need just a slap in the face, not.
Yeah,
Not
literally. They're more straightforward.
They just go, like, you screwed up today, fix yourself. Okay, got it. Other people are like, oh, I need a little caring, and it's just different. Mm-hmm. But it takes some time to you have to do at least 2 seasons on the engines before you can apply or screen, I should say, to Helitack. And then you show up for the BHOS. And then a week after that, we do air rescue, where we pretty much use the hoist and go in and out of the ship and use a bunch of different rescue adjuncts. And it takes a pretty mature individual and very focused and task-oriented person, checklists and so forth, that you have to be ahead of the game. So as we're reading this checklist, going through it, things are happening pretty fast. The rotors are spinning. Some people get pretty vapor locked by that. And the people that don't, usually we can keep. Some people get just the rotor spin and they're just lost. And you're like, okay, next thing on the checklist, you're supposed to be checking this. And they're just like, they don't even know what they're doing. So
would you say it's more or less dangerous than being on the ground?
Like on an engine? Man, I don't know. That's tough. I'd say it for the guys that are on there now. They'll probably really hammer me if I don't say it's more dangerous. I would say we get into situations where we're hung out there a little bit more. I don't see it as dangerous because we can also see, as we fly in, we can see a 360-degree view of the fire, and we can kind of see our escape routes and where we're going to go. And if something goes wrong, we can go here. And I have a front seat. If I'm riding in the back, I have a front seat captain that we can talk about it, and vice versa. If I'm in the front and go, hey, this looks pretty good here, we'll land here. Something goes sideways, you can go here and we can pick you up, or we can put the bucket in to support you with water. So there's a lot of coordination on that versus on the engine. When you show up, you don't get that aerial view. We get a little bit better view now because we have these motor data terminals. I mean, pretty much it's a computer that somewhat keeps our location on it. The technology's still not there for us, at least in kind of more rural California. But you can't see everything. And you can't see your escape route. I mean, you can see some escape routes, but you can't see the big picture. Versus when we fly in the copter, you can see the big picture. You can have an idea where the fire's going.
Gotcha.
And if we don't catch it here, we know we can catch it here. So then it's just hiking up there. Or we can get moved by the helicopter, which we tend to just hike it.
Right.
I'd say Helitack's a little more physically demanding long term versus the engine's more like pack a whole bunch of gear, lay hose, and slow down, because then you got to clamp and do your connections, and then you're going again. Versus Helitack's more like a steady grind the whole way, and then we'll slow down for a little bit, and then we'll have to sprint for 20 minutes, and then we'll have to slow down and then sprint. So they're similar. The engine, you always have water. Not always, but most of the time. And you have wheels, so you can jump in. You have AC, jump in and crank that thing up. If you have it, if you have an engine that has AC, which almost all of ours now have them. So there's some safety with the engine. At the same time, I think the engines have more exposure long-term versus the folks on the copter. So I was just talking to one of the guys at the station, and they're still banging calls. We haven't gone on a fire in like 6 or 7 days on the helicopter. During the summer, now we could go on 3 fires, 4 fires a day. So the exposure's higher right now. I mean, we can only fly between 8 and like 4:30 right now because of darkness. We don't really do night flying or night operations as of yet. We have our new helicopter coming here pretty soon, so then we'll have the availability to night operations once we're all trained up with the goggles and stuff.
Yeah.
So it'll be pretty cool.
Nice.
So I don't know. I think the engine world, I think I got more beat long term doing engine stuff versus on the copter. It's, you can get hammered one day and the next day, because the captains flop seats every day. One person's in the back, one's in the front. So if you get hammered in the back one day, you're like, man, next day I'm in the front. So you can
take a break.
rest your legs a little bit. And then it's more just mental focus and dealing with the pilot and seeing the big picture in the airspace and keeping people safe and keeping track of the crew and, your tallies and your frequencies and stuff. So it's mentally demanding, but when you get out, it's kind of nice because like all the radio traffic goes away. You have your HT, you have your crew, and you know what to do. Just go to work. So it's kind of nice.
Nice.
Sweet.
Is Cal Fire something you do full time, or do you have another job?
No, this is my full-time job since 2004.
Right on.
So there is like Sal and a lot of the firefighters are seasonal. We're slowly trying to change that. Most of them are 9-month. They can, per the state, I guess, law right now, they can work up to 9 months. So a lot of them choose to go 9 months, and they get a 3-month break paid because they're getting unemployment.
Nice.
And they're maxing out the unemployment because they're taking their 3 months qualifying time and throwing that as their time, when they're working. So they max out. So they take a 3-month break, go wherever they want. And a lot of them take these lavish vacations. They come back, they're like, oh man, that was great. I had a great day. And like, damn you guys. And we're out, burning piles or doing vegetation management plans and maintaining engines and, going to calls during the winter or staffing stuff and flooding and, gnarly accidents. And they're just like, oh, this is great. I just came back. I'm all fresh. And we're like, oh.
So what's a day in the life for you versus a day in the life for someone like Sal?
Well, I mean, first I work. Sal
Hangs out all day.
Sal didn't do anything.
So for me, I'd say like on the copter side now, our day starts usually at 6:30, excuse me, ish. And then as always, there's the fun news on right now that everybody I'm sure loves watching with what's going on currently.
Yeah.
Just stats and stats and stats of whatever. So then we usually PT at 7 or physical train, whether it's, running, hiking, lifting. It's usually either cardio or strength training. And once in a while we do some like yoga, Pilates, or just basic stretching because we're just so beat. And that's the crew kind of dictates it. And you see everybody just working around and everybody's rolling out. You're like, okay, it's a stretch day because nobody wants to work out. We're all beat up. So from about 7 to 8:15 or so, we work out, and then we have kind of go up to the base and do our briefing. So the guys, because of the COVID, what's going on, usually we have at our headquarters, we have a huge kitchen. It's like a commercial kitchen. We'd all cook there, and then we'd go up to our base. Now we just go up to the base, and then the firefighters that come on that day, one's called the pilot's assistant. So they are pulling out the helicopter, prepping the helicopter, working with the pilot to do the check for the morning. So they have to do a routine check every day. And they're checking to make sure, pretty much like you check your vehicle, there's no huge oil underneath, there's no leaks, there's no like broken connecting arms. Because if something goes wrong, things spinning really fast, and if something breaks, we're just going for a ride until we crash. There's not much a pilot can do if there's a catastrophic failure. So there's a lot of focus on that PA, having really good eyes and backing up the pilot and looking at all those different components. They purge the fuel and check for water in the fuel because that could cause the motor to stall, and we only have one motor on the Huey, so if that goes out, we're just a flying rock.
And down.
Which doesn't work so well because we're usually low and slow, and low and slow isn't very good for aerodynamics. So they kind of do that. We kind of will come up and do look at the weather, look at more during the summer, look at any fire behavior that's occurring, what we might go to. And we have a couple different radios. One's called the intercom, and that interconnects all the Helitack bases, all the air attack bases, all the command centers, and then the geographical area command center, or GAC, at Reading, so we can kind of hear aircraft being ordered and who's having incidents. So every time there's a fire incident, a wildland fire incident requesting crews, equipment, or aircraft, it goes out over the intercom. So you can kind of predict what's going on. You can hear, like, say Shasta's having a bunch of fires or getting lightning. Mm-hmm. So we're like, oh, maybe we'll get moved over here. Or Lake Napa's having lightning, we might get moved over here. Or we're having it and, stand by to get some. So we kind of look at that. A lot of intelligence. If you're in the front seat, you're kind of gathering intelligence. If you're in the back seat that day, you're kind of getting the crew manifest dialed in. We do a load calc with the firefighters to make sure we have enough, we can carry enough people. If it's really hot, we had one day, it was 1:15. We have to drop a firefighter off. There's just not enough, we don't have enough weight. With the new helicopter, with the Black Hawk, the S-70I, it won't even be a factor. We can throw everybody on and all their crap and just fly away. With the Huey, we're pretty weight limited, so you really got to pay attention to the height, the temperature, and then how much everybody weighs.
That's interesting how the temperature affects it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the warmer it is, the thinner the air is, and the blades won't bite as well.
And how do you know, like, is there a certain weight threshold that you can't reach over this a certain amount? Like, okay, man, you can't come with us.
Yeah. What's it? I'm the big guys. They're like, oh, the big guy's in the front today. We're not going to be able to take as much water.
Yeah, how do you know?
So there's performance charts for the Huey, and ours is a super Huey, which is pretty much, we got these Hueys Vietnam era, and we got them from the feds for like $1, and we built them up to what we want, which are pretty much, if you can imagine, like a 70s Chevy with a Corvette engine, and then like
just souped up
racing tail end. Like the motor's way too powerful, big blades, a tractor tail, so it's on the wrong side. So there's some stuff that it gives us a lot of performance and does exactly what we want to do. But as things have changed over the past at least 10 to 20 years, the parts are getting a little harder. Those aircraft are, the only person that was born when that aircraft was made was our pilot, and he's in his 60s. So all of us, I mean, even one of my partners, he's 49. It's like, I mean, we're the old guys by a long ways, which isn't that old, but the aircraft are in they're 60 plus years old now. So the supply chain, even though there's a lot of countries and people still flying Hueys, that supply chain slowly starts to run out. And we are maxed at 10,500 pounds for an external load, which is where you carry something. And we're maxed at 10,200 for an internal load. So if you take the weight of the aircraft, which if I remember correctly is 6214, which is just stripped bare, then you add 1,400 pounds of fuel. Then you add the flight crew. So that's usually about 8,000 some change. So you get about 2,000 pounds for a captain plus 5 firefighters in the back, all their gear, and anything else we carry. So It's not a ton of weight. And so usually we have a couple 100 pounds margin. Now the hotter it is and the higher we're going, the worse it is. So then we have to start stripping stuff down. That's when we have to run with, we'll run with 4 firefighters and a captain in the back, and then I might get swapped out because I'm getting off, so we can carry, it's like a 50-pound difference, but I mean, it's like 4 more gallons of water or something. It's not a big deal, but the guys give me shit about it, so I'm trying to lose some weight a little bit.
That's funny.
They're all small. Fuck them.
You gotta do the Pilates, man.
When do you guys get that new one?
The new one should be here. There's still a moving target, but we will have it by next fire season.
Next fire season?
So we have a bright, shiny, brand new S-70I, which is the civilian version of a Black Hawk. So it's called the Cal Firehawk.
Does your pilot know how to fly one of those, or is he gonna have to be retrained as well?
He went to, I think he's already been to school for it, so he knows. He hasn't actually flown it yet. They flew him back in the school back in Florida, and we just our aviation management units, and it's in McClellan at Sacramento. They just built this huge trainer so people can cycle through during the winters and train up on it. So it's from the people that I've flown with on the Blackhawks, they don't so much call it flying, they call it systems management. So you're managing all these different systems that are integrated, and some are doubled up or even tripled up. So you're kind of looking at, in ours, you're looking at like 4 iPads or tablets. So I'm not brand specific. If Apple's listening, I'll still like iPads. But you pretty much have 2 on the co-pilot or the captain side, 2 on the pilot side, and you have 2 others in the middle. And that's just your systems management. So you can just go through different ones and toggle back and forth and go, okay, this one's a map now, and this one's your fuel and all your avionics, and then you can switch them with all these soft keys. So you can do that. What we have now is just a bunch of regular gauges, and you just look at them and you're like, huh, everything's operating the green. Sweet. And the fanciest thing we have on the Huey is our iPad, which isn't connected to the internet. We have to use a phone to connect to the internet and this little puck. So we actually have accurate location. So when we're using a program called ForeFlight, we know where we're at in space on the aviation map. So it's pretty hokey. We're way behind the curve on that. So the new 70Is that are coming out are pretty fancy. And it takes a little bit more systems management for both the pilot and I. If I'm in the front seat, the actual flying part, you don't really have to use the pedals much because you have your pedals for the tail rotor to move it around, and then pretty much your yoke moves the disc around so where you want to fly, and then your collective both to roll the power on and pull up and down to twist the blades. So you bite more air, you go up and down or power.
So it's a full body thing.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, you're sitting there.
So you're super sore after that.
Holy cow!
It's. I haven't flown a ton. I mean, I probably have like 12 hours or something, and mostly in a smaller Bell 206 when I was down on a fire. The pilot I had was kind of old school. He's like, well, it's just me and you, and if I go down, I want to make it to the ground. I'm like, okay. He's like, okay, you got the controls. I'm like, holy shit. And I'm like, and it's a little bit, it's not set up very well on the left. And if I'm flying Helco or a helicopter coordinator on a big fire, it's one of the other ancillary jobs I do. You have like all this crap on to help monitor. My iPad's mounted up here so I can see where I'm at, and all the gauges are for the pilot on the right side. So I'm kind of like looking at his gauges to make sure I'm going. And yeah, you're pushing. Anytime you pull, you got to push. So it's you're kind of like, oh, you're doing this whole thing. And
Are they super sensitive, or is it kind of yeah?
Yeah, I mean, just people like think of grabbing it. You can like hold it like this and just move it around. Yep. Jeez. And it's pretty delicate. And power inputs are really, it's obvious.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it takes a little bit of getting used to, but then once you're landing and taking off are difficult. A regular flight, at least in the 206, is pretty chill. Like you can fly around and do your thing as long as you're just kind of looking at a couple gauges and you're scanning your controls just like you would driving. So it's pretty fun.
Nice.
But I don't know if I'd try to do it professionally. It's expensive to get into, man.
Yeah, that seems like something like having to pay for the instructor and the rent the helicopter.
No.
Yeah.
I would say go to the military, do your minimum time, or become a pilot, and then get out and use your whatever it's called, government pay. Or I forget the name of it now. The GI Bill.
Okay.
Use that to become a pilot. I know a couple of guys that have done that, so it's worked pretty well for them.
That'd be cool just to get your license and then start kind of like charging people to teach them, be an instructor and charge hourly.
That's what a couple people do. Actually, Ian would be another good one to bring on. He's a Fort Bragg guy, went in the Army, got out, and now he uses his GI Bill to become a pilot, and now he's trying to build enough hours to get on with us. Become one of our pilots. So,
do you guys kind of do that? Like recruit people that do have experience in certain things? Yeah.
Oh yeah. I mean, the pilots. We're in the process of hiring a new one right now, and we just went through 16 application packets, and a variety of people from mid-20s to 55 with flight hours from just over the minimum, which is 2,000 plus some mountain time. So like 2,500 hours up to 6,500, 7,000 hours.
Jeez.
So,
damn.
Some have tons, all military, combat, search and rescue, all this stuff. And what we look for, well, everybody looks for a different thing. So the Black Hawk is a Type 1 helicopter, big, heavy, 22,000 pounds. What we want, but it also has a ton of power. So sometimes our Huey pilots are very particular about who they want to see because they want to have Type 3 or small helicopter time where you're power limited and Type 2 time where you're also power limited. You really have to watch the power margin because if we just keep pulling in our Huey, we can literally just destroy our transmission. So you have to be really careful. With the Hawks, you can just you keep pulling, you just fly away. And it's a different type of flying. We're still going to have the Hueys, excuse me, So they kind of looking at, as we're sitting there going through them, we're like, okay, who has what? And, they have some type 3 time, they have some type 2 time, they have a bunch of type 1 time, which is good because that's what we're going towards. Or if they just have all type 1 time, you're like,
He's not
You
experienced.
want to be well-rounded, right?
yeah. And usually in the military, they've been flying with somebody else. So there's always a person to back you up. Like if I get tired of driving, the steering wheel just doesn't transition over to you, right? Well, in the military world, it does. You just pick up the controls, right? Oh, I got the controls, and now the other person's just chilling in the seat, and they can monitor the radios. So the pilots, especially, are critical of other pilots, and we kind of try to what would work best with us and our crew and fit in at the base, because fighting fire is kind of the easy part. It's the everything else, the dynamic of the crew. At our base, the dynamic with the pilot, the chief, the engineers, and then the station. So you gotta have the right fit of people, otherwise it causes a lot of problems.
Interesting. What's usually like the lifespan for someone in Cal Fire? Because you mentioned earlier that there's a guy that has 10 plus years, and I didn't think that was a lot, but again, I'm not
10
in Cal
years
Fire.
of on the job.
On the job, yeah, that's what I meant.
Yeah, well, it depends. So if like for me, I'm at 23 years. I got in at the 3% at 50. So for every year of service credit, I get 3% of my max wage when I retire. So if I go 3% at 50 and I have 30 years, I can get 90% of the max year I got forever until I croak.
Yeah.
So we get that. That's a huge one. That's like the golden ticket. Like Sal and a lot of the new guys, they're at 2.7 at 57, which is, man, that's a long haul. 57 years of doing this, or sorry, 50, like say 35 years of doing this is rough. The first kind of part of my career wasn't as bad. The last 5 to 6 years have been hard, really hard.
Why has it been
for
hard?
everybody? More assignments, longer assignments, watching whole towns burn down. A lot of, I think, some physical trauma, but mostly emotional trauma that a lot of first responders carry with them. So that definitely cuts into it. One of my engineers we just hired, was a great guy from Ukiah. And he realized, because he's on that 2.7 at 57 to max out, he's like, I have to go 30 more years. He's 27 years old. And he's already been doing it for 9 years. He's like, I have to do 30 more years. Like, and my partner, he's looking at 1 more year. I'm looking at 6 and some and a little bit of change. I mean, to hit the minimum.
Yeah.
And I'm looking at 30 years. I'm like, man, that's
a long time.
That's a haul.
Yeah.
And there's some times that it's pretty chill. And we can just kind of go about doing our jobs, and, we're doing internet classes and simple training here and there. And there's other times where you're up for 48 hours and you're caring for burned patients, or like the vehicle accident up here with the kids, or you're recovering kids off the beach, and those stick with you. You don't forget them. So that can cut into a career pretty hard. I'd say for the firefighters, depending on their drive and what they see through the department, most, I would say, cycle out between 4 and 6 years. We have a pretty high attrition rate. Some get in and go, oh man, I'm going to fight fires. This is going to be great. And they hit their first strike team and they're gone for 3 weeks. They're like, dude, I can't do this. And they punch out. Others will stay in for, we have some guys that have been doing it for borderline 20 years as a seasonal firefighter, because they can work that, 7 to 9 months. They make enough money to make it through the year. They're happy. They're healthy. And they can keep doing that. And they can go till they're 50 or, whatever their retirement factor is right now, and then retire. We've had a couple of people do that, which is a little strange. We try to push people from firefighter to engineer, because we need the senior people to be leaders instead of kind of wallflowers, so to speak. They're still leaders in their own rights at the firefighter rank, but they can make more of an impact as an engineer.
Why wouldn't someone want to be an engineer? Are there any reasons behind that?
The paperwork. One of them's paperwork. It can be tough. There's a lot of stuff. When you go from a firefighter to, let's try to make something similar to that, but going from firefighter to engineer is a huge, huge shift. When I did it, you go from being pretty much, hey, this is what you need to do today. This is what we're going to train on. check. You're like, okay, go and do it. To, oh, I have to do all that. I have to figure out what we're going to do, when we're going to do it, what time we're going to do that, pay for everything, manage all the resources, be their psychologist, be their sociologist, help the firefighters manage their money, deal with the relationship breakups, deal
Tons
with
more
them.
responsibilities.
Oh my gosh. And you make 10% more, maybe.
So a lot of people probably don't think it's worth it.
No, that's what I mean. We should get Brian in here. He'd give you a very good one. He's been doing it for, I think we hired him at 19. We tried to hire him at 18. And he broke his wrist skydiving like the day before. It should be a good story. I knew his family. Our families know each other. And he calls me. He's like, Drew. He's like, bro, dude, I went skydiving, bro. Broke both my wrists. He's like, what should I do? I'm like, well, show up. At least you can show up and show them that you're going to be here. And then we can't hire you because you got 2 broken wrists. We're not going to take that on, Yeah. And he just kind of showed up. He's like, sitting there with his 2 broken wrists. Like,
2 casts.
Oh yeah, 2 casts. Strings off.
So you're not going to believe what happened.
Yeah. So, but he got hired the next year, and he's been successful the whole time. He's a good firefighter, but he's one of the guys that we push. Quite a few of us have pushed him. He's like, I'm good. He's a good firefighter, and that's if they can keep doing that and they're happy, man, all power to them because the paperwork can get brutal.
Did you ever regret moving up to engineer? Or you like, man, I probably shouldn't have done this? Or
I did for like just a brief second. So I kind of had the option after my 4th season. I was going back to school to finish. I had like 2 classes or something ridiculous. Like you have to have 4 units, and one was like art. I'm like, you can't use the. I'm like at 180 units. You can't use one of these and substitute. No, you got to have this one, man. It's really important.
Yeah.
So it's like, the online photo class. It's credit, no credit type thing. But I also was the women's soccer trainer. So that was a little benefit there. Going back to school for that one. So I went back and I had the chance to promote to engineer, to limited term engineer back then. And I'm like, I don't know. I'll give it to this other guy. He's one of my friends. And they're like, well, you should have a chance next year. No guarantees, but you should have a shot because you did well enough for the tests. And, we're using the same list. I'm like, all right, well, let's give it a shot. So no big deal. I'm only like 22 or something, 23 at the time. So go back to school, finish the thing, come back to fire season, start working. And they're like, yep, you're going to your school. And I'm like, okay. And then at the same time, when my first captain was down the helicopter, he's like, you can either come up to Helitack or you can become an engineer. Your choice. I'm like, phew. And that was one of the things I wanted to do as a firefighter, and I do regret not doing it because it's different. I mean, as a captain, you're doing a similar job, but you're not, I wouldn't say you're as a technical specialist as well as the firefighters are. I mean, you still have to know the helicopter, know the job, and know their jobs pretty well, but you're not going to know it as good as they do because they're doing it every day. So that was kind of a regret. But other than that, once I became an engineer, I kind of already had the education and training, and it was like, okay, this is the progression. And my last season, I kind of felt that I was an equal with the engineers I was working with. I'm like, man, I know as much as these guys do. Like, I don't know why. Not that I'm wasting time, but I'm like, it didn't seem, if I just kept doing seasons as a firefighter, maybe in the copter would have been good, but like on the engine land, I'm like, not that I've learned everything I could by any means, but
right.
we were a lot slower then too. But it's just like, man, I'm pretty solid. I'm pretty solid.
Yeah.
So let's give it a shot. They can always go back, especially as an LT, which is limited terms. Like it's a seasonal job. So I did that seasonally for 2.5 years, then got a perm engineer job. So that was the only thing I regretted. It was just like, maybe I should have done that a year, but man, whatever.
Yes.
How often does something like that open up? Like going from firefighter to engineer, is that something that they can do individually every year, or is it just when it opens up?
So it's a test. It's now they're testing yearly. It used to be they only did like a test every 2 or 3 years. So you get on it. Our attrition rate is tremendous right now. So we're doing, I think, 8 engineer academies a year, which is like 480 engineers if they're doing a double academy. So let's just cut that in half. Let's say 240 engineers a year, which is a lot of people. Our department's about 8,000. We're losing a lot of the senior folks are going bye-bye. We've lost a whole bunch of them already, and we're going to be losing more as time goes on. So trying to get the newer folks in the door, train them up, and now they're getting, quite a few of them have a lot of experience. Now what I'm seeing more is not so much they don't have the fire experience, they don't have the leadership experience. And that's been a challenge for some folks.
Why do you think that is?
That's a good question. I know when I look for people to hire, I look for folks that have been involved in something where they are not the primary benefactor. So if you played sports, it's not all about you, right?
Yeah.
You're a part of the team. Now if you're the star,
sometimes it is about you.
Once in a while, but for the most part, you're part of the team. And that's what soccer is a great, baseball is another good analogy. You can be the star pitcher, but if nobody can hit, it doesn't matter. Right. You can score goals all day by yourself, but eventually somebody's going to slide tackle you and you're going to be out of the game. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's what I did. I focused on the best guy and I'd wipe him out. So, it's always a team, and people that have not been in team environments or worked in any type of team, not sports, but I mean, like we get folks from FFA, that future farmers are like, okay, cool. They've worked together on a project. Because it is 100% about teamwork with our job, not only just working for people that you like and you live with, but people you don't like, you have to deal with on an incident, or don't care for, or you've never even met. You still have to work with them to kind of accomplish the goal. So I look for those people. If it's just a person that's let's say they've gone high school and then they've done a little bit of college and they've worked like one job, and then now they have all these certs. You're like, how did you get this stuff? Like, what have you done? What's your life experience? Mm-hmm. And we can't always get the, moderate, decent life experience, has some potential. Some people we get are 18 and breathing. They've been through the schooling, and you get what you get. And then you try to develop them. A lot of our engineers, without having it used to be the LT program or limited term, and then come in LT, you kind of have like that year or two to kind of figure things out, because you had a couple engineers that were permanent, and then you had your captains. So you can kind of bounce things off them. Now it's literally, you go from a firefighter, you go through an academy, now you're perm.
Dang, just like that.
Yeah. So we have two guys at the base that they went from the helicopter, where they're very specialized. Now they're engineers, and they're still in the air program. So whether they're working at the air base or on the helicopter as the helitender or bomb driver, it's got a bunch of Jet A on it. They're very specialized, so we need to get them out. Luckily, they're both good supervisors and good people, but we have to get them out and actually in the real world dealing with the firefighters that aren't driven to be at the base, where they're like, So those are the people that are high achievers, and they drive the crew for the most part. I call them the sled dogs because they get stuff done all the time. They're easy. Sometimes you got to corral them a little bit. It's the folks that are the low morale. You always have to push them. It's always like, come on, help me, do your job. Mm-hmm. Those are people we have to work with, and some of those people end up as engineers. They pass the test, they have all the quals, they go to school, and now we get them back. And I was dealing with one this summer that it's going to take some work. So hopefully he matures a little bit in the next year or so, and because before long he'll be a captain. So it's so fast. They only have to do 2.5 years as an engineer before they can take the captain's test. And once you're a captain for 2.5 years, you can take the chief's test. And once you're a chief for 1.5 years, you can take the division chief's test. So pretty quick, you can go a pretty high rank and be making some big decisions without having a lot of base there. So that's a little scary right now.
Yeah, I would imagine.
We're seeing that happening, and it's
they need that in-ground, in-person experience to kind of get a better understanding.
I went to this leadership class a while back, and they talked about it was a military speaker. He said, be careful with folks that have jumped their whole career. You're like, well, okay, I mean, some of that's good, and in the military, some of that is necessary. But if you have somebody that has jumped every 2 or 3 years to a different, or even 2 years different job, different job, different job. Do you ever learn the first job very well?
Mm-hmm.
So I took that to heart. I mean, it's been quite a while now, but like I want to learn this job really well, and then I want to learn that job really well, and the stuff from this job will translate to that job or transfer. So if you just hop, it's pretty hard to retain all that stuff, at least from what I've seen. Now, some people are probably a little sharper than I am, so they can retain it, but it doesn't seem like that in a lot of cases. So
Interesting.
I think it's really cool that there's a clear career path, though, that you can
It
do
is.
certain here, and then you can jump to the next step and next step. Like in a lot of jobs, you don't see that.
No, and it's pretty. I mean, if you want to promote, they don't say here are the classes you should take. We have a very specific for a firefighter. You have specific classes. You have an engineer. You have specific classes. As a captain, geez, you have very specific classes to take, and that's the minimum. After that, it's on your own, which is very similar to other job markets where you get in the door. And once you're in the door, it's on your own where you go from there. They're not going to drag you along to be the best teacher
Yeah.
you want to be. You're going to have to go out and take some extra classes and work a little bit harder and read at night and study, go to conferences. Or you can just be the bare minimum. And we try not to get the bare minimum. Those people do exist. Most people are that 90% that want to just, say 80%. 80% just do their job, right?
Yeah.
10%, they don't want to do their job, but they want to get paid. And then there's 10% that want to excel and crush everything. So that's kind of what we see as well on the fire service. And there's a lot of people, that 80% is pretty big.
Yeah. That 10% that is very low morale, can you fire them? Or do they just weed themselves out? Or
Some, a lot, I'll call it self-mitigate.
yeah.
But they just go, this is not for me.
Right.
And whether it's, sometimes it can be physically too demanding or emotionally too demanding. If they're a little younger and they found this special someone, they're pretty much guaranteed to lose that special someone during the fire season. The first one that made it through the fire season, and then 2 was my wife. Before that, it's like girlfriend. You're like, what's the point? After you're like a month gone, they're like, moving on, especially in a college environment, moving on.
Mm-hmm.
I would have probably been the same way. If they're gone for a month, you're like, great.
Yeah.
See ya. So, there is a very good path up, and I don't know, it's there.
Yeah. Must be tough. Tough to
It
be in a
can be.
relationship.
Yeah.
It's real tough.
Yeah.
We see a lot of, with all the stuff going on with PTS, not only in the fire service and medical, police, or law enforcement and fire, and then especially military as well, from the stuff people have seen. It affected me a couple of years ago. I'm kind of through it now, but it has a huge effect on the family. The younger guys tend to not really get it until later on, and they go, oh man, that really jacked me up. And say I didn't really get it. There's a couple like big ones that stick out in my mind that you drive past that spot, or you see that crack in the road, or like it comes right back.
Yeah.
It doesn't like break you down or anything, but for some people it does, and they see things or they smell things.
Is there any like
Reaction.
counselors or therapists or anything that's available to you guys to talk to?
Yeah, there's tons. We call it ESS, or Employee Support Services. There's a huge group. They've been pouring a bunch of money into it lately with funding and jobs. And they go out and find people and peer review them to make sure they're qualified to talk to first responders. So case in point, I had in 2017, we had a firefighter pass away, Corey Iverson, down in Ventura, and I was the helicopter coordinator. I was flying above him, trying to first coordinate the fire attack, and then when he got caught and trapped, trying to coordinate the rescue. So really gnarly. I knew a couple guys on the strike team, and he ended up passing away, and that affected me pretty bad. We landed, and my hands were shaking, and we took a kind of a flight off. And what really affected me was when they drove by with the hearse and the procession of engines, and it's like, whew, man, that really hit home, because we're sitting at the heli base, And it wasn't that far from our hell base, and they drove right by us. And you could hear everything, and everybody's like, what? Oh, shit. And a lot of the guys that were staffing and girls that were staffing hell base were his friends. So from Southern California. So that was tough. And then we had the fatality up here, which is another hard one. But I went to talk to somebody in town first, and I'll keep their name off here, but they had no idea. So I started telling them what had happened, and they broke down crying. I'm like, okay, so I'm the one.
Now you're comforting
Yeah.
them.
I'm like,
Jeez.
hey, this happened to me. She's like, oh my God, this is so terrible. I can't believe you go through this. Like, well, yeah, you have to listen. This is me trying to offload, right? That's how you empty the cup by offloading, right?
Right.
So I'm trying to offload, and that person is just breaking down. I'm like, okay, well, that was great. I'll go see somebody else.
Roles are switched.
I just walked out. I'm like, man.
Yeah.
But one of my good friends we used to teach together, he now runs employee support services, and he's really into supporting the employees as best he can. And it's a good program. And we have a few people from the unit that have promoted to that position, and there's a lot of help. So if you need it, it's out there. Whether it's ESS, we also have this thing called EAP, or Employee Assistance Program, where you can get counseling for everything. It could be, our typical problems for our employees are substance abuse, money, and then relationships. So they have help for all that. And if it's not for you, it could be for your kids. It could be for your spouse. It could be for anything.
Oh, that transfers over to them as well.
Oh, yeah.
That's awesome.
So
Nice.
if I say, hey, my son's having this problem, I call EAP. They go, okay, this is the closest counselor we can get you. Go check them out. You get 8 per incident. So, like, I could do one for the son, one for the son, one for my wife. It's a pretty good system.
That's awesome.
They're never going to turn you down. And then we have an in-unit support network as well for when we have a large or an incident that needs diffusing. So typically we diffuse just like this in the engine. We're driving back. We talk about it. I'm like, man, that was messed up. You
Right.
smell that? That was horrible. That type of stuff. And then usually somebody cracks a bad joke, and that's kind of like, whew, that's it. If you need more, then there's people to go and talk to, and you kind of sit in a circle and just like this, and you diffuse, and everybody would talk about what they saw, what they heard, what they smelled, because smell usually brings out a lot of emotion in folks, or it has in the past. And so they kind of go through it, and we just walk through it from start to finish, and everybody lets it out, no holds barred. But you have to have a person that understands how that incident is going to occur to run that program. Otherwise, you're like, oh, well, what happened? Oh, you felt like that? Well, we don't need the touchy-feely. We just need to let it go. You need to get it out. At least that's what I've seen has worked in my time. So good program out there. And then on top of the ESS, we are finally using myself and quite a few other folks. We're in a working group to increase our physical abilities in the department, because we've had a lot of people that aren't quite there with that standard. So we're trying to beef that up, and we just got rolled under the ESS umbrella, which is where there's some money there. So we're pushing a kind of a hiking standard, and then like a physical abilities type test similar to the Army Combat Readiness or Army Combat Physical Test, which is it's a basic assessment of what you can do. And we're still not there on the pass fail, and there's different lines, but it's pretty good, because people that have taken it are like, okay, yeah, we need this, versus now we do nothing. You pass your medical screening, you're good to go, which is a little dangerous.
Yeah. Is that something that you guys really try to promote and encourage people to go to? Or is there still kind of this like stigma around?
For which one?
For like something like trying to deal with post-trauma.
Yeah. So if you see somebody having a problem, they can either self-refer, or I can go, Izzy, I see you're having some problems, and I've had to do it in the past. Where you go, I know you're having problems with this issue, and usually it's a one-on-one. And I go, how about you go give EAP a call? And there's cards everywhere. I have the phone number. I have the number in my cell I'll text people and go, hey, just give them a call. Like, it doesn't hurt. They're not going, oh, so-and-so called at this date, and they're going to send it to their boss. They don't care. It's paid for.
But I feel like, especially in a field like CAL FIRE, yours probably is a stigma where it's like, you got to be a tough guy, you got to be strong, you can't be,
there is
down. And
there is, and when I would say when I was younger, you still have to do it now. I still have to, I mean, I'm competing with guys that are your age or younger physically. I'm like, okay, I still have to be a hard charger. Same with my partner, Nick. He's a freak. He's 49 years old, and he can outrun some of these guys in their 20s. I mean, he's a beast. Nice. I don't know what he's doing. If he's like,
what he's taking.
I want to know too, man.
I mean, a couple of other guys are on some stuff, so I'm like, man, maybe I need to start taking that.
Yeah.
Grow my hair back as well, but it's out there. So if we see it, we can refer them. We try not to do that. Usually, it's a talk to them and go, hey, here's the number you want to call so and so, and we do have some personal contacts that are on the team, so we can just call their cell phones. It's really not the way it's supposed to go, but it gets the same job done.
Yeah.
So
that's good though. One thing I wanted to ask was if you could talk about your first fire.
Whew.
Or the scariest time.
Gosh, let me think about I'll use the most recent scariest.
Okay.
So the Oak Fire was this year. Happened right near kind of northeast of Willits in the Brook Trails area. Mm-hmm. And so we landed on fire, super hot that day, and short staffed, but I kind of had the A team on, a bunch of good guys on the ship, and my partner in the front, and a good pilot. We landed, small fire, we're like, we'll be able to pick this up. And we start heading down this road, and it's just in the grass, and it's just about to hit a tree. And we're just about to get there. We're like, hey, if we can pick this up before it hits a tree and it torches, it's probably going to throw some spots. And we kind of go running down the hill, and it hits a tree, it torches, and like one little spot develops. And you guys know Renee Harajan.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So Renee jumps off in the grass. He's like, I'm gonna pick up this spot. And I'm like, no. And he was already in the grass, and he goes down this drainage. And one of the other firefighters went with him that's got a back bump to put this out. All of a sudden, this stuff lands, and you see like 12 different spots develop all at once, all around him. And I'm like, holy shit, here we go. Sorry.
Yeah.
I don't know if I can.
You
guys can edit it out later.
Yeah, you're good.
Holy. All these spots develop. And I'm on the road with Stephen Cannoli. You guys know him?
Mm-hmm. I've heard of him.
And we're like, okay, shit, this is going to go sideways. And they start to all pick up together. It kind of influences each other. Fires start burning together, and they're in the middle of it. Renee just takes off running up and around through the grass, and the other guy is trying to knock it out the fire, trips, falls down. I'm like, he's going to get killed. Like we're yelling, run, run, run. There's this guy behind us in a truck. He's stuck. He can't back up because it's too steep. He's got a two-wheel drive, so he's just spinning his tires. And this whole thing's starting to take off. And luckily, both Renee and the other firefighter made it out. No burns. They're both zapped. I mean, it's 108 degrees, and we're in 2 layers with 60 pounds of gear on.
Yeah.
One guy has 60 pounds alone just in water on his back, so he's already smoked. He's in great shape, but like if the fat guy's pushing him up the hill, we're in trouble. So that was probably the closest call I've had on the ground recently. There's been a lot of wildland close calls, some structure close calls, like where I've had collapses and it hits my helmet and just knocks it. By sheer luck, it hits the back of the helmet without hitting me square in the head and breaking the helmet. Just lucky stuff. Or same thing with power lines down, and you think they're down, and then somebody's backfeeding with a generator, and you see it start to arc again. You're like, God dang it.
Jeez.
So it happens.
That must be so scary.
Trees falling and stuff. You kind of get used to it after a while. Not so much those odd occurrences, but you get used to operating in that environment where if you know a lot about the environment, you're a little more comfortable working in that environment. So wildland structure are pretty comfortable with. The hazmat scene, I don't even want to touch. Stuff that it's the chemicals that mix, and not a chemistry major, so don't want to touch it.
Yeah.
Technical rescue off the cliff here. We've done some rescues right off here. Super comfortable with that because I know it really well. I know the coast really well. Same thing with water rescue. But it's when you're in that environment where you haven't been here in a while, in that area or that type of call, and now you have to do it. You can't just, I'm not going to do it.
Right.
You still have to get it done. That's when it's like the hair stands up in your neck. You're like, okay, let's follow all the procedures. We're going to slow down here. We're not going to run in Renee and try to pick up that spot. That was replay in your mind, but it builds slides. We used to call them slides in a carousel. Now it's a PowerPoint, or what's the newest one called? is it Prezi?
The presentation?
Yeah,
I use
Prezi.
Google Slides.
I use Google Slides for everything.
Or PowerPoint, yeah. I
Or
would say
PowerPoint or Google Slides, yeah.
I had to use Prezi a little while ago for a presentation. I'm like, oh my God.
Yeah, it's too much of those.
There's a lot going on there. But those replay, and that's how you build experience. So, I mean, that time I think we got super lucky. We got ran out 3 different times that day on different sections of the fire. It was burning pretty erratic. So, you build the slide. You go, okay, when it was that wind with that temperature, and it's going to move. Especially that time of the year in late August and September, it's going to do that. So you can't, the same tactics we use earlier in the summer, we can't use later in the summer because the fuels change and they dry out over the year. So
for people that are in areas or that live in areas that are more prone to wildfires, is there anything that they can do to prevent them? Or is it kind of just, if it happens, it happens?
Prevention's pretty tough. There is some stuff that we have a prevention bureau they do. So we'll just start around your house. If you live in an area where it's fire prone and there's brush up to the sides of your house, you should clear it. A lot of people move into the country so they have the isolation or that connection with the environment. So we have the 4290 or Public Resource Code 4290 and 4291 that allows us either before you build or before you actually inhabit a structure, or once you have inhabited, we do what's called an LE 100 inspection. And inspection, we look for 0 to 30 feet, kind of the mean, lean, and green zone. To say it, we don't want a lot of vegetation right next to the structure. Okay, kind of makes sense. Mm-hmm. And then from 30 to 100, you just limit the fuels so there's not a horizontal continuity from like that 100-foot zone all the way to your house. Same thing, we limb everything up. So instead of limbs hanging on the ground, so you don't have the vertical continuity, you just limb things up, 6 to 8 feet, and kind of isolate bushes and trees, and so it's more of a mosaic, like a checkerboard versus just a continuous fuel bed. And that's what we look for when we do the inspections. Reducing the actual ignitions kind of depends on the area. Most people think about the cigarette throws. You have to have such a dry environment with a receptive fuel bed to make that work. It's usually people towing chains, arsonists that just want to do it for whether it's political reasons, financial reasons, or just they're a little, off. Mm-hmm. That's a lot of them. People just burning piles. Like today, there's people burning piles all over the place. A fire that happened just a couple days ago north of Fort Bragg was somebody burning a pile and then it escaped. And it burned up a couple acres.
I never understood that. When people just go and burn random things and then it ends up leading to...
Well, you have to sometimes.
Yeah, the people I dealt with when I was here at Fort Bragg was 60% of our fires, 60 to 70%, depending on the year, on the coast, were escape control burns. So people are doing the right thing. They're clearing their land. They're burning. Right. But what they do is they'll start a burn ring, or they're burned, and they walk away. And then you get a little gust of wind. I mean, when does the wind not blow on the coast? Right. You get a little gust of wind, and then you're off to the races. And it's happened to a huge cross section of people. Yeah. So it just kept happening. And so we started with the Prevention Bureau, and then the battalion chief I had at the time, we'd go out and push a hard PR of, hey, protect your burns, watch what you're burning, 4-foot minimum, 10-foot scrape, which is a law, but people don't follow it all the way around. And then once we do that, and it still keeps occurring, then we'll actually go and start fining people. Mm. Okay, it's not a lot of money. You're talking $100, $150. So for some people that's a lot. For others, it's whatever. Yeah. I don't care. But then when you burn somebody else's property, or you mess up their house, or we had one where it got into a escape control burn into a boat, and then the boat owners got burned up and killed. This is quite a while ago. I mean, that's a significant event. Yeah, so you're looking at you could be looking at some fines and even jail time depending on how it gets played out. So we don't try to scare everybody with, oh my God, it's going to take down the world. But if you take care of your little kind of 3-foot circle, 4-foot circle for burning, and everybody takes care of their 3-foot circles, then we're a lot better off. Then we don't have to come in and take care of the mess later on. Mm-hmm. Exactly. So that's kind of the message I tried to push when I was a station captain here, and go out and do the inspections and be proactive at it. And the more we're out in public telling people, this is okay, this is not, this is what you should burn, this is what you should limb up, along with our foresters that can help with range management and also forest management to cut down trees where they need them and limb them up and stuff. You can give your community and your house a lot better shot, along with changing the state changed the rules, kind of the regulations for what you build in the state responsibility area a few years ago. And if you use those regulations, you're going to be a lot better off. So versus if you have wood shingled roof with needles all over it, you don't have a great chance of surviving a
fire hazard.
Yeah, you might not have a great chance on that one. Now, if you have a non-combustible siding, non-combustible roof, your gutters are cleaned out, and everything's cleaned up around your lot, you have a pretty good shot. And you have access for us to get in and out. It used to be the old slogan was, you provide the offense with cleaning out everything around your house, and we provide the defense when we show up. So,
do you see the fires? Because it seems now that it's happening almost every summer. Do you see them eventually dying out, or is it something that's going to continue to take off?
You know what? So like going back from when I was kind of a younger firefighter, all the senior guys talked about, 1987. It's when 1987 happened. Like all these fires happened. And then we had 2008. They're like, 2008 had like kicked 87's ass. And then we're like, all right, we're the 2008 guys. And then last summer happened, this summer, 2020, beyond the COVID and all the other crap that's happening, the lightning that occurred all over the state, and the size of the fires, because it happened so much later in August versus when we had in 2008, it was in June. And we had fires before that up in the Lassen Modoc area that took off. The size of those fires and how quickly they spread was pretty shocking. We flew the large fire in Lake Napa, which I cannot remember the name of it now. It was right near Lake Berryessa. But we flew to it. We put out 2 fires on the way. We landed the crew, and it was a relatively manageable fire, like 40, 50 acres, and they had a good shot at it. And our chief was in the air attack. He's flying around. We had a good plan, and we had to fly off to go get fuel. We came back, and the fire went from manageable to, like fucking blown everywhere. Like this fire is a Hennessy fire, taking off, just ripping. There's 3 spots over here, and it's like 3 separate fires. You're like, we were gone for 2 hours.
What happened?
Damn. Wind.
How fast does it travel like that? Does it just depend on
with the wind? It as fast as the wind's blowing. Maybe like a 3/4 factor of the wind speed, but it'll. When we had the ranch fire in 2018, I watched it from the forest top. You guys know where Ladoga Road is on the far east side, near I-5, way over there. It was spotting 3/4 of a mile with a light wind, and like they're getting these little fires, and they'd call us out there, and like, is this a spot or is this a new fire? They're like, no, this is spotting from the timber, way far away, which is, 3/4 of a mile is a long way.
That's insane
to spot, and we're seeing that, and I didn't see it as much this year. I saw some, but in 2018, we were calling it like the hand of God type stuff. And I'm not crazy religious, but watching like this whole hill just engulf in 150-foot timber and a swirling mass laying horizontal, and like seeing like pieces of trees flying out. It's pretty extreme. Damn. So, and that was the Carr fire that year. That was the Ferguson fire that year. That was the fire we had in Mendo. And then this last year was, I think we've only had 2 times in at least the history that I can remember where we've had 100% deployment of our forces. So 8,000 of us, everybody's on the job. And that was 2018 and this year. So from 15 to now, the only slow year we had was 19, and we still had a 85,000 acre fire in our backyard in Sonoma. So the majority of the summer was pretty benign, but at the end of it, it crushed everybody, and we burned, a couple communities down. So when I was starting as a firefighter, if I went to a 100-acre fire in the unit, that was a big deal. Now, if it's not 1,000, it's like,
it's not 1,000.
It's crazy to think about. I worked here until we had, I can't remember, I want to say it was 13 or 14. We'd never had a burnover in this county. From 98 till 2014, the lodge fire, then all of a sudden, we had 5 guys get burned over. And then 2 weeks later, we had 3 more get burned over, and three vehicles destroyed. I'm like, what is going on? Like, it's just, things have changed a little bit, and I can't put, a finger on it. Obviously, fuels management's a big part of it. The climate change phenomena, I think it's more of a cycle personally than we're just going to keep going up, 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 up. I think it might just do this, but it could be 50 years from now. Like, as we've kind of seen throughout history, the ice ages and so forth. Obviously, we're affecting the planet, but reducing fuels, we have to reduce the fuel loading. And that's a very long-term project. It's nothing's going to happen quickly. I think Governor Newsom gave us $5 billion for 5 years, and like, you could give us $20 billion for 80 years. I mean, it's going to take a long time to the massive fuel loading. And in California, the litigious nature of our society, nobody wants anything to get done. They want to get done, but they don't want us to burn. They don't want us to masticate. They don't want us to go on this person's property. We have to watch out for this animal. We have to watch out for this bird. We have to watch out for this, creature that's in this creek.
A lot of obstacles.
2 days out of the year, maybe. And so that's important, but there needs to be some workarounds to that. And there were some workarounds, and we were starting to get some stuff done, and now those have been put back in place. So the work has definitely slowed down. And that's where our kind of focus is during the winter is VMP, or vegetation management programs, where we can go out and modify the landscape, reduce the fuel loading so it's more like a park versus something. If you just walk up the hill, you're not walking through that timber. It's standing right next to each other. It should be spaced apart. So everything that's big should remain. Everything that's small underneath the canopy, you need to eliminate it. It's not going to grow anymore, right? It's a wasted space. The bigger trees, which I should bring my wife on. She's a forester, but she can tell you that the bigger trees give off more oxygen, and they also absorb more CO or CO2. So keeping the big ones, reducing the small ones, allow the big ones to grow bigger. And that way you can modify the landscape and reduce fuel loading and keep the carbon neutralized.
Interesting.
I can't remember the exact word for it, but those all can occur at the same time, but you have to work through that legislative process, and that's
tough.
Man,
That does sound tough.
quagmire.
Yeah. What would you say, like, the major pros and cons of being in CAL FIRE? For somebody that might be listening that maybe wants to join CAL FIRE in the future.
The pros, you're going to fight more fire with CAL FIRE than you will with anybody else. Hands down. Now, it is only going to be in California. If you want to go intrastate, and you want to travel the nation and potentially Alaska, Hawaii, going to fires, then that'd be the U.S. Forest Service. But if you want California, we have the 2 GACs, or Geographical Area Command Centers. Because we have those 2, it's obvious that we have more fires in California than anywhere else. Extremely fire-prone state. So if you want to fight fire, work for us. We're the preeminent wildland fire agency in California. We're California's fire department. We're the 3rd largest fire department in the nation, largest in the state. So we hire a lot of people. We do things pretty quick. That's why they call it the Big Red Army. When we have to mobilize, we send a lot of people really fast. When we want to put a fire out, we throw everything we can at it as fast as we can. As I was told, as an air attack, so I fly in the spotter plane above everybody else, directing the kind of the air mission. Like, we don't care if it costs $5 million for this day, and you use every aircraft you have in the arsenal, everything from our smaller S2 turbines like we have at Ukiah to the 747. We don't care as long as it doesn't go to a major fire, because major fires cost hundreds of millions, can cost hundreds of millions of dollars. So like the one here in the Mendocino that went 1 million+ acres. That's never happened in California. I mean, we watched it day after day after day grow and grow and grow, and we couldn't do anything about it because it's not our land. And that's where some of that stuff needs to go away. But Cal FIRE is a great job. It is tough on the relationships. It's tough on you physically and can be mentally. There's a lot of rules and regs because you're in California that you got to abide by. But it's a great long-term career. You can get in, you can do your time, you can retire relatively young. Literally 6 years from now, I can pull the pin and walk away and have a pretty good retirement and full medical for the rest of my life, which is pretty hard to find these days, whether you're in public or private sector. I mean, a lot of the private stuff, people are getting their 457s and 401s and stuff taken away from them because the companies fold because of crappy management. So that's rough. I would advise people, if they want to do public service, to jump in early, get in the game early, because you can build up, whether you're putting money away for your 401s and 457s and college savings funds or for your family. But you can also get vested medically, which is a huge deal, because that could be anywhere from $1,000 to $2,000 after retirement. I mean, you're in the same boat with teaching. Right?
Yeah.
You're pretty well covered now. At the end, my mom was a teacher for a long time. Same thing at Dana Gray. So they're still pretty well covered. That's something to look at as you're looking at jobs down the path. It might be cool to do a job where you're by yourself, you're your own boss, but then look at the long term, where you're going to end up. I mean, do you have to go till you're 65, 75? Are you going to make it that far? Do you want to work your whole life? I mean, I don't mind working, but I wouldn't mind having some summers to myself and doing what I want to do.
Yeah,
exactly.
It's been a long time. I get a few weeks off every summer to do stuff with the family, but that's about it. I don't think we've had we've done some traveling, but it's pretty few and far between. Okay. Summer is pretty much firefighting, and then winter is firefighting. With some trips here and there, and go to the snow and surf when I can. But it's a great job.
Nice.
It can be I don't want to say it's hard to get into. You have to have talk to the right people and have the right qualifications to get in the door. Once you're in the door, sky's the limit. You can do whatever you want. I never thought coming from here. I remember when I first went into the CDF station, and two captains there were sitting up, their feet up on the table, and I'm like, "Yep, I'm interested in this." They're like, "Good for you. Like, come back when you have experience." I'm like, "Great." No idea. So now we have some stuff to hand out to people and talk to them, give them a track to follow. Give them 1, 3, and 5 year goals so they can set something, write something out, and visualize it and attack it.
What's an example of some of those goals?
I mean, it could be like for like a first year. I'll take a guy that I just had. So he's a 4th year firefighter, and he's like, Drew, I want to be an air attack. So an air attack it takes a while to get there. Mm-hmm. You need a lot of experience, a pretty solid education. You have to be pretty sharp with radios, and you have to be able to visual. So it's like an air traffic controller, but you're flying above everybody. So you're doing a very similar job, but you're also talking to the ground and looking outside, and you have to know your spatial orientation of where everybody's at the same time it's assigned to you. So there's some ways of there's some different tracking systems. Pretty much all they give us is an iPad that's not connected to the internet, which is super helpful.
Mm-hmm. I'm sure.
Hopefully you can catch the sarcasm on that one. Yeah. And it's getting better, but a lot of us have our own stuff that we can use. And, I'll have the state's iPad, I'll have my phone, I'll have my little iPad over here. And so I can use a couple different things to track aircraft. And to get there, first you got to be a good firefighter. Then you got to promote and be a good engineer. Then you got to promote, pass a test, be a good captain. And you need several quals, which are, you go out and take another class to become like a division group supervisor. So then you're a geographical or functional area boss for the most part. Mm-hmm. So you do good at that. Usually you have to go out of county, you do multiple assignments, you get signed off by a peer, you go through this whole peer review, and then you're entered in the system. So then you've met like the very minimum, and you've done a couple years. Now, if you want to be in the air program, you should probably, if you have a helicopter in your unit, like for me, I'm like, I want to be on that. So as an engineer, I want to be a rescuer. So I became a rescuer. And then I just kept being a rescuer and did some rescues off the coast and have been with that ever since. And then slowly in 15, I got to go. They're like, hey, you want to become a Helco? Because I had enough experience and education and training and the right quals. So they sent me this helicopter school, which is probably the best job we have on a fire. I mean, you're in the mix. It's stressful. You're flying in these little tiny helicopters. So for me, I'm kind of crunched up, depending on the airframe. But you can actually make a difference on the ground. So if you're the boss on the ground, you're like, man, I'm not really sure how this is going to work and where this line is going to go. I'm like, okay, where can I pick you up? Like, oh, my truck's right here. Pick me up here. And we'll land, pick you up, throw you in the back, put you on a headset. I'll fly you around and show you exactly where your line is at and set you back down. And they go, I got it now. Because otherwise, it's like two-dimensional, right? You got a map. And if you can read the map, great. A lot of people can't read maps. And we have some other technology that you can use to kind of make it 3D and apps and so forth. But if you can't understand that and see it, I'll take you up and give you a flight. And then you can kind of go the big picture. So Helco is a great assignment. So I did that quite a bit in 15, 16, 17, and got the ability to go to air attack school in 17. And then the wine country fires happened. I got my ass absolutely kicked. To the point where my instructor in the back we're flying this fire over Santa Rosa and we're orbiting, and we took off from Redding. We could see the columns. We could see 2 columns in Mendo, like 4 columns, and then we saw a column over here in the Grass Valley. And you're like, oh, fuck, dude. Okay, this is going to be difficult, and there's only so many frequencies we can use, and there's other air attacks flying at the same time and coordinating their airspaces, and all of them are about, at first, they're like a 10-mile diameter airspace, so you have multiple. And I'm talking to another guy I know, like, hey, this is what I'm thinking, and I'm trying to talk to the ground. They're changing frequencies on me, and in the aircraft, we have to punch them in manually in this radio, and the radios are kind of archaic, to be frank. But they work. And so we're doing all this, and the pilot's flying, and the guy in the back, he's just like, we're so fucked. We're so fucked. I'm like, dude, what should I do? He's like, I don't know. He's like, I've never been here. Because it just hasn't, we haven't had 3 huge fires right next to each other where airspaces bump into each other. So where we have to communicate on kind of a backup frequency, how to bring the proper aircraft in from the right areas so that they don't hit each other.
Yeah.
So I'm like, hey, I'm bringing this aircraft from here, here, and here. They're coming at 5,000. Where are you bringing your aircraft in from? And they might be operating from the same base, and they're going to 2 different locations. So, and we have, it got complicated, and it was, usually we can fly about 4 to 4.5 hours in our air attack planes. That's a long 4 hours. It's 4 hours it's usually about a half hour of, okay, we're getting there-ish, maybe 15 minutes, and a 15-minute ride back. In between that, you're getting just hammered by 6 radios. Damn. So it's just constant communication.
It's intense.
It's super. You get down and you can still hear things at night.
So you hear the numbers
ringing. Oh yeah, you can hear the ringing, and you're just like, God dang it! And it still happens once in a while, but you get used to it over time. But to get to that spot, you need all the classes, and you need all the training and the experience, and then you get more comfortable, and then you go through the air attack school, which is a 2-weeker. Mm-hmm. You go and fly, and then you do anywhere from about 80. I don't know. I've heard 70 to 100 hours is usually of flight time. Of when an air attack usually is, they're about to get signed off. You do a check airman flight. Once you get past 100, people start like, I don't know if they're going to do it. Once you're past like 120, they might kick you out of the program. Now think about that. That's like 30 flights is 120 hours. Mm-hmm. It's a lot of flying, and it's a lot of fires. So my checkoff ride happened to be the ranch fire, which took off because we lost all our aircraft, and it just went. 400,000 acres. That wasn't all my fault, but that was my, for a while I had the largest fire in California on my name, which sucked. But
is there some type of like banter amongst Cal Fire? Like, dude, you got the biggest fire in history.
Oh, yeah. Every like the holiday for, not the holiday, the date for it, anniversary, they'll go, hey, like this year I was flying air attack. They're like, hey, let's not do that again today. I'm like,
bring you flowers for it.
Yeah, I'm like, great. So I mean there's funny. A lot of that, and if we screw up, it's almost all of it's recorded, so they hear it and they'll play it, and but it's good. It keeps you. I think it keeps you pretty well grounded.
I think so. Yeah.
If you think you're hot shit, like the next fire you'll chunk it, and then
they'll remind you.
Little humility. Yeah, and it happens to all of us. You say something dumb on the radio and everybody hears it. You're like, God. And it happens from time to time. It's especially when you get stressed out. It's you start to shortcut some of the proper terminology, and you just start using some slang. You're like, oh, I really just said that.
Like stupid.
Okay,
stupid.
And yeah, I'm all. Hopefully nobody recorded that one. And usually our air frequencies they're an AM frequency. They're not. I mean, people can scan them. Not many people record them, but there's some people that record them, and they'll play them back. And you're like,
I did say that.
I said that. You got me. So,
That's funny.
That's funny. And so for someone who's maybe interested in going into CAL FIRE, what are the next steps? What should they be doing next?
so if they're, let's say they got nothing right now, or they're coming out of school,
Exactly.
it's tough. Depending on where you live, if you're, let's say you're in Fort Bragg, you can do a volunteer program, or I think it's not volunteers. You're not a full volunteer. You're a explorer, I believe. I can't remember the term for them, but same thing with Mendo. You can do an explorer program, so you kind of get your feet wet. County Search and Rescue takes people. So the Mendocino County Search and Rescue's office, Search and Rescue. I did that for like 12 years. A good group of people, and you'll learn a lot of skills, and they're actually getting better and better as we go. It was a little underfunded before. Now they're actually funding it appropriately. So there's some skills you can gain there. You can start your medical training, because that's a big part of the fire service. Not so much with CAL FIRE on the Schedule B side, but anything with having to do with cities or our Schedule A side is the predominantly medical calls, which it can be pretty rough to deal with sometimes, depending on on where you're working. The lower socioeconomic scale, it gets pretty ugly in certain places. So working your medical training, whether you get first responder, first aid, obviously CPR, AED, and then if you can, become an EMT. The county offers classes. They're not very expensive. The goal would be become an EMT, and then I would get a job, whether we can get it with CAL FIRE, Forest Service, BLM, or with even a county agency that's hiring, like Marin County hires seasonal firefighters for their hand crews. And I'd work on getting a paramedic position, working on the ambulance, getting more experience, and then that'll set you up pretty good for a fire job. If you want to just come straight to CAL FIRE, it's look at get your medical training, and then look at the Mendocino County JC, Mendocino County, God, Mendocino
Mendo
College.
College.
Yeah, Mendo College JC has a fire academy that we teach. So you register through the college. We teach it at Howard Forest with our instructors, myself included, and a couple other guys. So we run you through the program, and that's our first screen. So if you guys come through and you do well, you just passed. I mean, you can apply all you want. You just passed pretty much your test. We know that you're a performer or you're not a performer. So we like doing that, and it's a pretty good agreement we have with the college. I think it's mutually beneficial. So we only had 8 students last year. In the years prior, we had in the 20s. We're going to need, if the plan, from what I'm hearing now, is going to occur next year, we're going to need a lot of people, because we're losing all of our, all the inmates are being released due to COVID, due to liability with the state. So all the inmate hand crews we had at Parlin and Chamberlain Creek camps, we used to have 10 hand crews total. Now we're down to 2, and we're about to lose. We might lose those. So we're actually depopulating is the correct term. One of the camps, Chamberlain Creek's being depopulated. All the inmates are going away. All the CDCR, or the corrections folks, are going away. It'll be a CAL FIRE compound, and we're going to try to start that as I think it's going to be called the Mendocino Fire Camp, or Mendocino Fire Center. I forget the term, but we're going to try to have at least 3 paid firefighter hand crews there each year. So it's going to be seasonal at first, but I mean, you can work 9 months as a firefighter and then have 3 months off. Or you can also work 9 months right now, which is it's an open enrollment right now, or open testing for one of our inspectors. So you go out in a truck, you do inspections all around the county. And if you live locally, you could leave the truck here, drive and grab the truck in the morning, go out and do your inspections for 8 hours. We pay for an hour of PT during the day, so you can stay in good shape. You do inspections, that's also a 9-month job. It pays about $3,000 a month. So we've been trying to push that on people, and man, we don't have many takers. I don't know if people just don't know about it, don't want to go through the process, which it takes some time. I mean, you got to go through the process and do your applications and so forth, and kind of dot the I's, cross the T's, but you're not going to really get anywhere without doing that anyways. So
Yeah.
if you can't do that minimum application, or unless you have some wealthy relatives that are going to hook you up, it's a pretty rough world. But just applying, getting out there, and then the best to go right to fire is the Mendo JC Academy, and that'll put you. If you apply and you pass the academy, that'd be rank 1, unit 1, and then we get the first pick when we do hires. So then we can grab you right from that list.
Sweet.
How long does that usually take? If you
The
go
academy
the JC?
is, I want to say it's a 2 months intensive academy. I mean, Santa Rosa JC also has a good academy. Yuba College, Butte College, College of the Redwoods. I think theirs is actually through Humboldt ROP up there. I have a friend I don't know if he still teaches it or not. I think he has retired from it, but anywhere you can get the Cal Fire Basic. And the Cal Fire Basic has all your fire stuff you need, plus medical, plus hazmat, confined space, and any other little classes we sprinkle in there. Then you're pretty much preset to come work for us, and you do a 1-week refresher, and we throw you on the engine.
Nice.
Sweet.
So,
What's next for you? Like you said, retirement, if it's an option a few years away.
Yeah,
but
it's totally in the future. I mean, working on the helicopter now, I still want to work on the helicopter another couple of years, or at least a year with the 70i, the integration, and see how that goes, and work off the Firehawk. I love doing Helco and air attack. Still get to do that, hopefully, for quite a while. And I hope to promote in a year or two, maybe, I don't know, depends. I mean, I'm on the Chiefs list. I have been on it 3 different times. I just, sometimes it just doesn't work out. And then it'd be great to either be the local BC here, battalion chief, or get the air program and then run that and be there, through retirement or plus, depending on how all that economically works out, if the kids decide to go to school or whatever they do. Mm-hmm. So we're kind of saving for all that, but if they want to go somewhere it's expensive, I guess I got to keep working.
You guess you got to.
Or they're going to have options. Or they're going to have to work really hard.
Yeah, one of the two.
So, but yeah, that's kind of, I mean, minimum 6 years, more like probably 8, and then see what happens from there.
Right on.
It's after a while, it's dealing with all the bureaucracy can get a little tiring, and I'm sure teaching you understand that one.
Absolutely.
We seem to shift focus before we actually finish something. So we'll go, oh, this is a new thing. And we start going down that path, and then we shift focus to something else. You're like, well, how about we just finish what we did here, and then we'll start the next one. But depending on who the governor is, who the director is, who the secretary of, not the interior, secretary of natural resources for California, that can shift focus from, election year to election year. So it can change pretty quick. Same thing with, education is the same way.
Right.
The new secretary of education, and hey, we're going back to the old curriculum, the old frontier curriculum. We threw the books out 2 different times, and now we're going to buy them again. That type of stuff.
Yeah.
And that's, like some people that have worked in the public sector, that does get a little tiring. But, after that, I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll just ride my motorcycle and surf.
And hang out.
Heck yeah, man.
Enjoy retirement.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean,
probably get into something else, I'm sure.
Yeah. Do you have any other questions?
Those are all the questions I had.
Yeah, I mean, you basically answered everything we had and more. You gave a lot of good insight. And if there's anybody out there listening, thinking about joining CAL FIRE or even just asking about it, do you mind if they hit you up?
Yeah, no problem.
Basically, that was it. We just want to thank you so much for your time. It was really nice meeting you. Thank you for your stories, for your insight, everything. And we'll catch you guys next week.